Good morning or good afternoon at this point, depending upon where you are. This is Mike with Alpha Shark. Thanks for joining this morning. Put a little presentation together, and I wanted to go over with you guys trading a basket of stocks. And I believe that there is some real validity to this. I do that, and it really involves around having certain stocks that you just know inside and out, right? And you know how they trade. And and you tend to trade those stocks better because you know when to trade them and when not to. Does that make sense? So that's what we're going to cover today, along with our normal sentiment and some other. I do have some institutional flow for you, so give me a half sec. So if you want to get a hold of me, Mike at smartoptiontrading.com, on Twitter at OptionsMike. I highly recommend you guys follow me on Twitter, because if you follow me on Twitter, you will get all the free juicy stuff I put up. You don't have to pay a thing for it. I put a ton of stuff up there. You'll know you're there when you see there. That's me in the middle, by the way. That's my friend Katie, and we were on set with Fast Money last year. So anyway, sign up there. Follow me at OptionsMike or on YouTube at youtube.com/OptionsMike. All right, so let's go over it today. So for today, what I prepare, well, risk disclaimer, sorry. Day trading, short-term trading, options trading, and futures trading are extremely risky undertakings. They are generally not appropriate for someone with limited capital, limited or no trading experience, and or a low tolerance for risk. Never execute a trade unless you can afford to and are prepared to lose your entire investment. All trading operations involve serious risk, and you can lose your entire investment. No trades are recommendations or advice, and we cannot be sued for losses of capital. All trades are for educational purposes only. Contact your broker or RIA for execution, margin, and other capital requirements. Everyone watching this presentation adheres to all disclaimers from alphashark.com and myself, Mike Pisani. All right, so I'm going to go over trading a basket of stocks. We're going to talk about what they are, why I use them, and how that works. We always go over market sentiment. I do have some institutional flow I want to share with you guys this time. And depending how much time we have, maybe we'll do a couple charts. How does that sound? A nice little way to spend a little bit of your time here with me on Saturday, and hopefully you guys learn a thing or two. Okay. So trading a basket of stocks. I'll be the first person to tell you guys, hey, yes, I'm a whore. I'll trade just about anything if I think I can make money on it, right? Does that make sense? But that doesn't mean that, you shouldn't. There has to be special cases. So I'll trade most names. I will trade names based off pure technicals, right? Name bouncing off of technical spot, a name that is coming into resistance, a name that's breaking out. You pick your technical setup, and if it's out there and I like it, I may trade it depending upon what the market's doing. Okay? I'll trade off of pure option flow. There's tons of names I trade that I don't know anything about or don't have a slightest clue what they do, but if the flow is right, I will definitely trade it. Okay? So I'll always try to do that. And I will also trade names off of news, right? I will take a name based upon an event or news. It could be off of earnings. It could be off in a biotech, off a drug hit or miss, or it can be somebody taking a stake or rumor of a buyout, right? I'll trade off of any of those for any given reason there on it, for a day. And when I talk trading, I don't mean investing. I mean trading, right? And everybody understands the difference. Investing is I buy names I like and I hold them for long periods of time and, trade around that position. Trading is I'm getting in and out on a daily or a couple day basis, depending upon what's going on with it. All right. I think it's recording, but you can never guarantee it. So no guarantees. Sometimes it doesn't work. There are some names I just won't trade, guys. And the truth of the matter is there are some names that liquidity is just not there. It could be with common stock where there's just not enough traded on a daily basis for me to touch it, or the options are just illiquid, meaning there's not enough volume there or open interest in them to trade. And it just, to me, I look at that and I'll just say hard pass. I don't care what the news is or how big the option flow coming into it. If I don't think that the name is liquid, I won't touch it. I also won't touch a name if the spreads are too wide, both on common and options. When you get a situation, you got a cheap stock that, you get a $10 stock and the options are trading around a buck with a 40-cent spread, I'm not paying that. I'm just not paying that to get in. At the same time, I'm not going to play a smaller stock with a wide spread. Now, on names like Tesla, Uncommon, or Tesla or Netflix, you're going to have a little bit bigger spreads because of the size of the stock, and that's okay. You just have to factor that into your trade. And I also will not trade names that burned me too many times in the past. There are some names that are just on my never touch list because no matter how good it looks or whatever, for whatever reason, I seem to just get it wrong. And there's nothing wrong with having a do not touch list. Okay? I know a lot of people out there will say you can't have a do not touch list. Why? If you have a stock that gives you fits and you don't trade it well, why keep trying? Does that make sense? I'll tell you one that gives me absolute fits all the time. Goldman Sachs. That name always goes against me, no matter what. It just seems that I just never get that name right. So I don't trade it. Very rarely touch Goldman Sachs. Never seems to perform like it looks like it's about to. Yep. AMD burned you, right? So it's okay. At least take a break. Okay. Okay. So why do we have a basket of stocks? Because there are times when we're not getting much in the way of option flow. And I want you to think through this week period. I don't know if you follow anybody who calls option flow out like I do or in a room like Alpha Shark or something. But if you pay attention to it, there'll come times when the market starts saying, we're not really getting a lot of option flow. And that's usually a sign of indecision in the markets, right? It's the market's way of saying, we're not sure what we want to do here, so we're not doing a lot. We're moving some stuff around and stuff like that, but there's no real good flow coming out. Okay? There are times when the technical setups aren't great. Well, that kind of started to happen this week in a lot of names, right? A lot of names ran into resistance, right? The markets kind of ran into resistance. The overall market this week hit a decision point just shy of the 200-day, just around it on the SPY and at it on the Qs. Market is indecisive. Setups aren't great. We don't have flow. So you can either sit around and do nothing, and cash is always a position, right? You don't have to trade every day. Even if you're a full-time trader like me, you don't have to trade every day. What you'll learn is if you learn to be patient and wait for the setups, you'll make your money on 1 or 2 days or for the entire week. If you're paying attention, if you find it. But if you have a known basket of stocks and you know how they trade, they're going to give you confidence to trade those names. So you'll know how to react in a market like this week. You're already likely to know where support and resistance is, right? So I can tell you on Square, instantly, every day I have it outlined. I know exactly where support and resistance are on it, and I have it outlined, and I know where it needs to break out to or where it needs to hold to stay in the game. That's one of the names I trade all the time, right? And if you should have your names like that, where you're always looking at support and resistance on it. And if you do not, take the time to put it on your charts. It's the weekend. Take a half an hour or 40 minutes to go through and put these on the stocks that you like to trade. You got to do your homework, guys. You got to actually spend a little time studying. You can't expect everybody to do everything for you. As much as you might love listening to me or pick anybody else out there, right, and listening to what they have to say, you got to do your own homework. Your best trades are always going to be the ones you do what? You take on your own. It's not that you don't need to push sometimes to get into them, but the ones you take on your own are the ones that are always probably going to be your best trades eventually, because you're taking them because you know it's right. You're not just blindly following somebody else. Make sense? Good. All right. So what do we need to look for when you want to create your baskets? So first of all, the stock needs to trade at least 1 million shares a day of common on average, not on spikes, on average. Much more, preferably higher. 2, 3, 5 million, much better. Why do we want volume? Volume shows us what? You got it, KM. Not liquidity, not volatility, liquidity. Volume is liquidity, and we want liquidity. Liquidity is a good thing. Okay. We also need to understand what represents unusual volume in a stock and learn quickly on an intraday chart how to identify that. Okay. Well, we all know that on an earnings day, right? Volumes through the roof on a name, right? We don't need anybody to help us identify that, right? Because that's just there. Usually before the stocks open, it's already traded its average daily volume, just about right in the overnight session. These things tend to get tremendous, especially the big names, tremendous volume on that. But when you're watching a stock and you're looking for it, this is Micron from this week, and notice the volume on the right. If you guys can see that, see if I can get this up over here. Oh, perfect. Okay. Look at how high the volume was here compared to this day here and this day here. If you follow Micron and you know it well, you'll see this and you'll instantly know that Micron is in play within the first 5 minutes, right? Within the first 15 minutes, you know there's a trade in Micron if you want to get into it that day. Does that make sense? Right? See the volume. See how much higher it is? Not only is the first 5-minute candle higher than all the other two, but look at the continuation of the volume here. It just continues and continues and continues to go. That's exactly what you're looking for when you see something like that, right? You're looking for that. And when you see that, what are you looking to do when you see it? If you're not in, because you didn't get in on the first couple minutes, you're looking for up here, a dip, right? You see this dip here? Dip, that's your entrance. As it starts to come back above it, that's your entrance right there. Yep. Dips to get in, right? You don't want to try to chase that candle, because if it's a bad candle, you're going to get yourself in trouble, right? You look for dips. You pick spots. I use a 5-minute chart for volume because it's quicker. Use whatever you feel comfortable in, whatever range. I adjust how I look at things depending upon the market, Krim. It's a great question. Right now, this market's got into a horrific pattern of you get good movement in the first hour, good movement in the last 40 minutes of the day, and the 6 hours or so in between are absolute death, right? So I've been taking most of my trades in the first 40 minutes of the day of late. Does that make sense? Because of how the market is currently trading, not because I necessarily want to. So that's a 5-minute chart here. Oops. Okay. Let's look at NEO. What's something else that you can look for? If you know a name and you're following it, unusual call buying in a name for multiple days. NEO. We had flow after flow after flow into this name all week before it took off, for a couple of days before last week. And then you finally got explosive volume that came in. So again, here's the NEO chart. If you were watching this name and you know how it trades, you know that it's been going sideways on okay volume here. You know that all the call buying is coming in. I don't scan KM. I just use the option flow and news and my eyes to get me in and out of things. Bottom line. I know some people love scanners. I just have so much going on at this point. Adding something else into my field of vision may cause me to have a schizoembolism and be like sitting here like, shaking and watching TV. It's just too much, right? You can only do so much. And that's really what it comes down to. All right. So on this one was from this week. That was Wednesday. This is a 5-day shot of NEO this week on a 5-minute chart. Okay. Again, if you have been watching the option flow, you knew to be involved in this name. You knew to keep an eye on it. It was on your radar. And if you knew how it traded, right, this volume right down here was your clue to get in. You could get in. If you missed the initial hump here, it went sideways. For here, let's watch this. I'm going to make this nice and easy. Screw this. Watch this. All right, that's the day we're talking about, right? You have this huge volume pump and this drop. Look at this right here. What did NEO do here at around 8:15? You see how they held it in on volume? You see how small the candles got? So your entrance was at 8:15. At 8:15, you could have put a stop in. You could have put a stop all the way down here at 8 and never been touched. 15 cents of risk. All right? And just waited, waited, and waited for that next pop up on it. Right? And you can see they kept coming. What would keep you in this, again, if you knew it, they were still buying calls through here, buying calls the whole time. Right? You see the volume comes in, they hit it, and then if you see the volume kind of dies off in here, and then we get it again. But if you know Neo and you know how to trade, you knew there was a good chance you were going to get a secondary move that day based upon how it was holding like this. Okay? Again, know the stock. Know how it trades. Look back at previous sectors to see how it trades. Remember how tight those candles were? It didn't have candles like that through here, right? You already have a clue. Looking at the stock, how differently it trades on those days. Make sense? All right? Trading very differently on that day. Okay. Again, I'm not saying Neo needs to be one of your names. I'm just giving you different ideas, different examples. Let's talk about CRON. You could trade options or stock, whatever, ever you prefer. There's no right or wrong way. You know I have a preference right now in this market to trade options, to trade common, because I can get the quick hit and get out before the market pulls in my face. And it's easier to get out. You guys who'd follow me yesterday know I had a beautiful win. I called Tesla right, and I could not get out of the options because of liquidity. I ended up breaking even. Nothing like giving back a 50-cent gain because the market makers for a minute won't take your order even though you re-enter it 5 times in that period. Okay? So, when you're watching to determine call option volume was continuing to be, Robert, I call option flow as part of my service. So I watch all the flow. So that's how I see it. You can hit me up if you're interested in learning more about it. I have software that I use. Okay. What to look for, CRON. Knowing how your baskets trades can also help keep you from chasing it. So on CRON, you're going to see we had a huge move up in the last 5 minutes of the pre-market, only to pull hard. And you also can see here, the day before it ran, it pulled into the open. So again, look what's going on here. The day before, we had a bullish engulfing candle on CRON, right? And you can see here, they pulled it back on the open, right, on the first day, and then they launched it on volume. Yesterday morning, I told everybody, careful with CRON. See that pop up here into the open? You see how they did that? They love to do this. They love to do head fakes with the first 5 minutes here. So they popped it, they took it higher in the very open, they shot it up on volume, and that was it. It was game over for CRON. They yanked it down, they got people trapped, a little bounce, and then they yanked it down all day long. So knowing how a stock trades can help you. I often will tell you, watching and learning, a lot of stocks like to do that. They like to misdirect people on the open. The first couple minutes before the market opens, they like to move it in a direction that is not the opposite direction of where it's going to go because they're trying to get everybody going the wrong way. All right. Make sense watching CRON? Okay. This is Square. This is from Thursday. And knowing how a stock trades, I made good money on Square Thursday long because I traded it multiple times, is knowing that a stock is acting better than the ETF. So if you look at this chart here, guys, where's my, okay, you can see where the Qs came down in the opens, Square popped, right? Went sideways, gave a nice trade here while the market kind of fuddled around, made a little bit of a move, got back to the open. Square made a new high on the day, right? See the difference? The market starts to pull. Square kind of hanging in for a bit. Slowly comes down with it, gets a similar type candle here, but what do you notice about Square? You get a much bigger river bank. It's showing strength, right? And when the market rolls back over again and puts in a new low, what does Square do? What is Square doing here? It's going sideways. It's showing strength, right? And if you know the name and you see it, you're also start picking up on something. The first thing I picked up on, these candles, Square was Square was bouncing before the market. You would see it start to go before the cues came. There was buying coming into the name. So that gave me the, reason to get in and to make a second trade on it into this, right? And you can see how where the cues all day struggled to take the VWAP and the ATR trailing stop, Square got above it. Now, I said there was resistance today at 72. See my line here? I already drew it. I have 72.06. That got me out, right? You see how it played with that number all day long? That means that line was drawn pretty good. Yep. And yesterday, Square gave us a beautiful candle yesterday. Broke above my area. But also, knowing how a name trades, you'll see it. You'll see that this name is leading. It was hanging in better. So again, knowing little things like this are going to give you the confidence to take a trade that you may not take otherwise, right? Especially if there's nothing going on, especially when the market's like this, right? This doesn't look like fun to trade, right? You're not really sure you want to be short into this. You don't really want to be long, right? This is kind of like, I don't really feel there's any really good winning setups in here, right? When you look at the cues. But Square gave it, if you paid attention. Oops, sorry. All right. Okay, so let's talk basket of stocks. You should have a name or two in multiple sectors, as many as you feel you're comfortable, but don't get too big. You don't want your list to be so big that you can't possibly keep track of it. The reason you want to have in multiple sectors is because when the market rotates or sectors take a day off, you need to have other places to go look, right? Saying I'm just going to learn all the semis, well, that's great, but what happens on a day when the semis aren't in play, right? What happens when the market gets stuck and they rotate from sector to sector on a daily basis like we've seen them do before? Well, that's what this market. Oh, we got to go back to the beginning on it, Mark. We're talking about knowing stocks and knowing how they trade and recognize when they're trading differently. And this is what this is about: is learning these stocks. So for me, these are some of the names. That's okay. These are some of the names I follow and I trade often. In the semis, my favorite are AMD, Micron. Pick the ones you like. Pick what you're comfortable in. I like them both because I know how they trade. I know when Micron was in play the other day. I know when AMD is in play. I can recognize when it's doing things, like changing. I recognize when the flow is telling me something's different, right? In the financials, I hate Goldman Sachs. I don't trade it anymore. JP Morgan and Citi, for me, just trade much cleaner and much better. Again, learn how they. The only way you learn how they trade, by the way, is by watching them. Right? You have to look at them throughout the day. Right? Um, Social media, I love Twitter and trade that. Facebook as well, but Facebook for me is always a tough trade. The options never seem to move well with that name for me for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I always seem to have a problem with the options on that name. Industrials, I love Boeing. Boeing, it trades very well for the most part. Cat also can trade very well. These two names I've identified, excuse me, I can very quickly identify when they're in play and when they're moving in the right direction. Square is my go-to name. I always look, every day I'm looking to trade Square. Now, if the setup's not there, I don't take it, right? But if it's there, I'm looking to trade Square. Netflix sometimes, Apple as well sometimes. Those are good names, high liquidity. Netflix has become tougher lately. I'm trying to record it, Mark. I'm hoping it comes in. In energy, COP is my favorite name. It's my go-to name in energy. I trade it well. MRO is a name I also trade. I also like names like Rig. Pick the names you like, right? Consumer staples, Procter and Gamble, Merck. These things trade very, very well. You can look at them, you can trade them. They trade very well technically. If you learn how they trade, you'll instantly know where they're in play. In the biotech space, guys, very, very tough because this sector moves on drugs or some other name having drugs that affects them. If you're going to trade biotech, I usually would just trade IBB, XBI, or Labu. Stan, it's a mix. Depends upon the day. Depends how I feel. I'll trade either stock or options depending upon what I'm looking to do or what I'm trying to do. So yesterday I was trading options in Boeing and Tesla, and I traded OSTK in common. Just depends upon the name and what I'm looking for what I'm looking for in it. Any name that I'm looking for that I want to trade needs to have at least a million shares a day. Doesn't matter for options or common. It's names without a million shares a day, Tim, to me do not have enough liquidity to trade well. They are subject to big buyers or sellers just changing the name, moving the name too easily. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, pushing the stock, right? Pushing the stock. You want names that you can identify real buying or real selling, not that some penny pusher or some pusher out there like KM's doing is pushing the stock and you have no idea how long it's going to last for or what it is, right? You want names where you can come in and identify it. Um, you know, Let me bring this up real quick. So, you know, here's my volume. Neo averages around 7 million shares a day. That's why it works. Does that make sense? Doesn't have to be recognized. It has to have enough. Recognized are better. Neo's good, right? Roku is tough. I trade Roku a lot, but Roku trades closer to 3 or 4 million a day. It's a little bit of a tougher name. Square trades about 10 million a name. That's what makes it extremely liquid. AMD trades 50 million shares a day, right? Minimum. Makes it very, very, very liquid. Okay. Let's give a name that's not liquid. Here, this little TME. It's getting better. It's okay. It's trading a couple million shares a day. It's all right, but it's low. Trying to think of some illiquid names out there. Deer. Deer is a tough name. I don't very rarely trade Deer because for a big name, it usually doesn't trade 2 million shares a day. Does that make sense? Okay. I'd rather trade Cat. They tend to move similar and it has more volume. Okay. So you can look around. I almost never trade. I used to trade Priceline booking all the time. I have not traded in a year and a half. The reason is it just doesn't have enough volume, guys. Thank you. 270,000, 5,000 shares a day. Great one. Thank you. Right? I never touch names like this. It's just not enough volume, not enough liquidity there. Okay, so these are what you're looking for, names. Most of my trades right now, Robert, because of the way the market's trading, have been in the first hour of the day. And that's only because that's what the market is trading with right now. That's all. I'll trade all day long when the market's trading right or it's trending. But right now, again, learning to identify the market. The market lately has been, hit me up on HD and HD from learning it. It's okay. A little lower on volume, but not bad. We'll look at the charts in a minute on that. But learning when they trade, learning what's going on in place, right? So if you look at the SPY again, the last couple of days, this pattern kind of sticks. Busy first hour, death zone, pop in the last hour. Busy first hour, oops, right? Busy first hour, and then we just drifted around aimlessly, right, for the rest of the day. No offense, guys, I don't want to be chasing candles into that. Richard wants to know, do I put in orders before the open or wait? I very, very rarely take a trade pre-market, although I will if I have a very strong feel. I often will wait 5 minutes unless I have an extremely good feel. I usually like to wait the first 5 minutes because I've learned in this market right now, you tend to get a lot of whip in the first, right there. And I want to make sure things going. Big boys are going to lunch starting at 10:30. They're not coming back to 3:30 right now, Mark. That's a 5-hour lunch. I want a 5-hour lunch. All right. So, You go from there. So basically that's there. All right, back to our presentation. All right, so go pick names. Get a bunch of different sectors. Have names you can trade in them, learn them. Have them up in a chart so you know where to look. If you see on a day when you suddenly realize the fins that are in play, you should have a go-to name in the financials that you want to play. All right. If you know there's a day where the industrials are in play, you should have a go-to there, right? Same thing with energy. You should have a go-to name in these sectors where you know, understand, you watch it, you know how it trades, you feel comfortable grabbing it, knowing that if the sector's in play, you know how this name is going to perform better. All right. So does that help you guys there? It's something different. I don't think anybody talks to you. If you learn how to learning how to trade the same stocks over and over again will really make you a better trader at the end of the day. You'll always have something to go to. I don't think a lot of people talk to you about this, but in my trading, I know I have go-to stocks every day. That doesn't mean I'm going to trade them every day, but it means I have names that I'm always going to look at for a trade if they're acting right and the setup's there. And that helps, right? That gives you that ability to go to them. Yep. All right, let's go over sentiment here. Do you use market orders? No, I never use market orders, and I miss trades because of it. I always use limit orders because market orders, you never know where you're going to get filled. You just never know. The last time I used a market order on Square, I was up $500. I couldn't get out. I put the order in I was up $1,300. I put the market order in to get out because it wasn't taking my order, and they filled me for an $800 loss because liquidity had gone bye-bye, and they screwed me over. Now, nice and luckily enough, I called Thinkorswim, and they helped me out, and they helped make me whole in the trade. But at the end of the day, that was a very upsetting experience, and that's why I don't use market orders. Yeah, and I was very green. And that they said there was just at that moment, there was no liquidity. They couldn't sell anything. All right. So let's go over sentiment, guys. Listen, I'm very upfront with my losers. I'll go over my week with you if you guys want. I have no problem. Everybody knows about my week. I tell all my subscribers every week what I trade, what I won, and what I lost on. And we're always going to have losers. So fear and greed index. Okay, I like to use this because it's easy to look at. A month ago, we were down at 27, right? We were actually at one point as we came out of December down at almost zero, I think 2. Now we're at 61. So the market has changed, right? We've seen this go from extreme fear now to we're in the greed mode. Does that mean we can't keep going? No. We're not in extreme greed. We can definitely keep going. But it certainly shows that, the market got to a point where it's time for it to start taking a look. Stock trade sentiment. This is what's a little bit more interesting to me here right now is see how we're only 49%? We got that bump and we've come off. This is retail investor. The retail investor, when you look at the SPY and the Qs and look at the IWM, they're already running for the hills. Do you see this, guys? The retail investor here is very, very, very nervous in this market for good reason. How many times has CNBC run out some big bear in the last week talking about how the market's going to sell off from here, we're going to go through the lows or whatever it is, right? I mean, they're constantly running their mouths on this, right? How many guys do you hear them having on saying the market's going to go to a new all-time high? Sky's falling, right? But I mean, the point is they're scaring the individual investor. Okay, so we'll see sentiments dropping. The more this drops, the more bullish I tend to get, guys, because who always has it wrong? And I know we're all part of this, but who always has it wrong? Right? No, retail. The small investor, guys. KM's got it. Retail investor. Retail investor is always the last out and the last in. That's the saying, right? They always chase, get in too late, and they always get out when the market's bottoming. So this is interesting to me. Yeah. Okay, the oscillator. For a month, we have lived on the NYMOT, the New York Stock Exchange, in this hot zone, right? Very, very rare. We were embedded, overbought in the worst way. And after a while, I just said, you know what? Screw it. I don't care. I'm not going to let this worry me because the market doesn't care. So I'm going to trade with it because right now it's holding up. So finally, this week, we were at 240 at the beginning of the week. It doesn't show it on here because it was an intraday reading, okay? And we dropped all the way now to 30 yesterday on the close. So finally, the oscillators are cooling off and setting up for a possible another move higher without doing very much damage to the markets here. On the NYMOT, same thing, right? Already cooled off to 47. Yes, you can get that on there. In fact, you'll see it here. This is it down here, the McClellan oscillator. See it? It's a study in TOS, KM. By the way, I started up Thinkorswim this morning. They had erased everything. I had to build everything. I don't know why. So you just added as a lower study. Just look up McClellan. Got it? It's accurate. It works good. It tracks at a very well with the one I'm showing you here. Arthur, it got to the point where we got to the point with this thing that if you didn't take longs because you were scared because we were so overbought, you were going to be missing out, right? So you have to learn there's a time when the market just doesn't care and you stay with it. You know, the trend is your friend. You be more careful, right? But you stay with it knowing that until this market gives me a reason, I'm going to stay with it. All right. Okay, the SPY here, guys. So I did this with you. I went over this. I tweeted about this to you guys this week. I told everybody, I was saying everybody on Tuesday, careful. Wednesday, good time to lighten up. Good time to take profits. Good time to go small. Why? Because we had a huge run. The 200 days right here. The top of the Bollinger Band was right there at that point. The market was showing signs of it wasn't sure what it wanted to do. Thanks, Elton. Appreciate it. That explains why. Thank you very much. Okay. Option flow had died on these 2 days. Look at the size of these candles compared to everything else. Do you see this? Right? Again, learning to recognize when the market is telling you, hey, dumb, you know what? Wake up, be careful, lighten up. It didn't say short, it said be careful. Then we get a gap down, and now we've gotten a little bit more volatility coming in. But what haven't we done yet? Bottom line, guys, is we haven't broken a single level yet. We are still above every moving average but the 200-day. We closed above the 8-day both days. We held 270 into the close both days. And what kind of candle did we have yesterday? Hammer reversal candle. Thank you, Richard. Okay? So everybody who wants to get super freaking bearish on the market, if you're just looking at technicals, I would say, hey, maybe you should wait until the market gives you a real reason to get damn freaking short on this market before it rips your head off again. All right? So, there you go. Nobody is going to go out there and say it. I'll put my eye and I'll say it. We'll see what happens here, right? We have a big move. We have reversal. We knocked a lot of the bullishness out of this market, stopped out a lot of longs, got some more people short. This market loves to do what? It loves to get people misdirection, trap them, and reverse. So we'll see what we get next week. Okay? Yep, you're right, Arthur. It's definitely a battle area, right? Definitely. But this setup from here, starting next week, is better than where we were at on Wednesday and Thursday. On Wednesday, right? Pulling back and running into the 200-day is better than this 5-day move to get there, right? You reset things. You reset some setups. You give yourself room, a little back and fill. Yep, China was closed all week. That's exactly right. Right? We'll see if they come buying it in here. Yeah, it probably is. Very similar. You got it. Very similar type move. You got it on the 22nd. Very good look. Okay, let's go to the VIX. I've been talking to you guys about the VIX forever. I told you guys, you break 26, we're going to come down. Broke 26, right? Went right through it. 16 now is huge. Now 16 is proving to be a battle. We haven't quite given it up yet. We're fighting it. It's holding it. We're below it again last night of the close. If this market's going to take off, this VIX is going to come crashing back down and come back in towards these lower ends again. So keep an eye on the VIX. Okay? VIX is showing, though, very little fear here in this market. Even in the volatility this week, very little bit of a bounce, right? Couldn't hold it either day. Not much there. QQQs, they already came in and tested the 200-day, guys, right? Again, learn to read the tea leaves. They ran ahead. They already got into the 200, right? See, they are in line. It tested it. Same type of move. Came back in. KM, I like VXXB. I've been watching it. It's trading very, very well right now. It's just volatility is not there right now, and it's just not a time to be trading volatility ETFs. But the volume's there. So to your point, what you're asking here, I know I keep bouncing all over. I apologize. But I do like to answer your questions because I don't feel enough people do this stuff for you guys when they're on webinars. All the volume that was in VXX has come over here now. Arthur, it replaces VXX. VXX went end of life on January 30th. It no longer trades. They replaced it with the same. It's the same ETF, both Barclays. They just replaced it with VXXB. ETNs have an end date. The volatility, because of how they structure the future contracts based upon the ETF, have an end date. That's why. Okay. VXI, I don't know. I trade that. I trade UVXY every once in a while, but usually I trade VXXB. Trade whatever one. I don't know VXI. The other one is the VXN. Again, for me, it's the VXXB. That is my go-to. Again, that's part of my basket, guys. By the way, VXXB is another one of my basket names. I'm not the best short in the world. I'm better at being long. So guess what I do when this market starts getting weak? I come in and I grab VXXB. Again, trade to your strengths. It's an ETF, Arthur. You can trade options on it and you can trade common on it. It trades beautifully. And they're very liquid. Everything's very, very liquid. All right, IWM has been leading us in both directions. They're all ETNs. It's an ETN and it's an ETN, but it's not leveraged. It's a straight ETN. It's not a leveraged ETN. UVXY is leveraged. VXXB is not leveraged. Make sense? But it's an ETN because it uses future contracts because there's no underlying on the VIX. Okay. Got it? That's why I like to trade it, because it's not leveraged. Common is stock. Oftentimes, guys, what I'll do is instead of trading an option on something, I may grab a 500 or 1,000 shares and try to take it for a 20 to 50 cent ride or a buck ride. Yeah. All right. So IWM came up, still well below the 200-day, still lagging everything but trying to get going. Acting well, though, above the 8-day, back above everything, not showing any fear here either at this point. All right. I do have some institutional flow that you guys can take a look at. All right. So a couple names this week and a half, the last 2 weeks have stood out. First of all, Merck. Merck had good earnings. It's been going sideways. It has a nice look of a chart. You have this high of 80 up here. And look at the flow that came in yesterday. March 1st, 77.50s, April 77.50s, right? Feb 78.50s. And there was this other little piece of news this week that didn't get a lot of fanfare, but I picked up on it. And that was, it came off my Twitter feed. No, it didn't. Did it? Yeah, here it is. Bank of America adds Merck to US 1 list, removes AGN. So Merck is a name that trades well. It doesn't care as much about the market sell-offs. Look at the last couple of days. It's been a defensive name. Keep an eye on it. Nice little flow there. Name worth watching. Make sense? Another name, Snap. Now, I hate Snap. I lost money on Snap this week. I said I was never going to trade Snap, and I chased it, and I paid the price for it. I hate this name. I hate this name. I really, 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 really freaking hate this name. Just to make it clear. But if you like this name, we saw yesterday afternoon for about an hour, my scanner was nothing but Snap calls. All over the place, Snap calls. This is not even anywhere near a quarter of it. This is just snapshots of it because it was overwhelming. I wasn't even calling it all to my people because it was just overwhelming. But here, look, 30,000 April 9 calls. Oh, I hate this name. 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 I don't believe they deserve to be in existence. Anyway, if you like it, look at the April 10 calls, April 11, March 10s, Febs. They were all over it. 950 calls, this name. Again, for me here, why do I like this side the flow? Because this thing has a huge short interest in it. And names with huge short interest in it can break and get big squeezes. First stop would be up at the 200-day here, right around 950 or so. Then 10, I think, is your next potential area. Name worth watching if you like it. Yeah. Netflix. I am back long Netflix yesterday afternoon, late into the close. Okay. Netflix, we had a big buyer on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, on Monday, a couple of them. March 1st, 400 calls. March 1st, 400 calls. March 1st, 400 calls. 2,300 of them opening. And then this guy, May 400 calls, 1,000 of them, $1.42 million. Then he added another 360 of them. Big, big buying in Netflix. This is big buying for Netflix. So the reason I want to point this out to you guys is, this is money, right? This is people putting money to risk. This is real buying. Now, I bought the Netflix March 1st 400s. I sold them on the second day, and I got back in them cheaper here yesterday into the close. Okay? Again, 360 is resistance at this point until it breaks above it. But if it gets above 360, this name has room to 384 where it has a gap. Okay? With me so far? Dropbox. So I don't like these calls. I would not trade these calls. And the reason I would not trade these calls is because the stock is trading at 25 and they're buying January 60 calls. They keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back for them. They've hit this thing a bunch of times now. There's 29,000 open interest from the last week and a half or so. Why would I not trade those? Because it's too far out of the money, right? They're cheap. They're too far out of the money. It's going to take a buyout for that to happen. That said, the 40s I would take a look at in January based off that flow, okay? First stop here is 26, gets above that, and then I think 30's in the cards for this name if it wants to go. I like the name. I like the space they in. I like how it's been coming in here. Okay. The other reason I like 40 is because 40 is the all-time high. Does that make sense? All right. So I like that. I like this name for a move up into here. I like it to go up and try to get going here. Takes out 26. I'd look up around 30, right? Comes into the bottom of this range where it consolidated. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to give you ideas. I'm not in any way telling you should take this flow, do with it. These are names that are on my radar and stuff I'm looking at. All right, guys. I have a couple minutes for charts. Do you have any questions on anything I went over with you? Hope these are all things that can help you out and make you trade better this week. I know somebody asked my thoughts on what's going on. Well, we didn't get a deal for the government shutdown yet. I'm not really overly worried about it. The market didn't really care about the shutdown last time. I don't think it's really worried about that here at the moment. I think I'd be more worried if he was to declare a state of emergency and create a constitutional crisis. China, we have trade talks this week. Lighthizer and them are over there. We have a March 1st or 2nd deadline coming. What I'll say about China is that, deadlines can be extended. So we'll see. If they're making progress, they'll probably extend the deadline at this point. What else do we have out there? Somebody asked something. So let's talk about option flow is the flow. It's the buying of options and selling of options in the markets on stocks. It's oftentimes you can use it to know when a name's in play or when there's unusual volume coming into it or unusual buying into it, momentum. Thoughts on Boeing and Apple for long? Sure, we can go over that. So Boeing, it looks great here, Don. Just needed to cool off, right? A little bit too hot. Hey Pamela, how are you? I shorted Boeing yesterday and Tesla. It held here, the gap up to the T, right to the penny, turn back up here. Your 8 days coming up. I would try longs off the 8-day, Don, if I can get it. I'd rather not chase this up here. It's still heated, it's hot, but this name looks great, but it can use a little time to digest before we break above 410 and go for a move to 420. What do you mean by when do you short, Pam? I short a lot, but I usually short by going long VXXB. It's just how I am, but I did short Boeing and Tesla yesterday. I think those are about the only shorts I took this week. I was not in a short-minded move this week. Apple, bottom answer. Oops, sorry, I didn't take it. Hope you're doing well, Pam. Miss you. Apple. Apple's kind of stuck here at 175. Nice pullback to the 8-day. This is an area to watch. If the markets are strong, I would take Apple here off the 8-day. It looks good. So if the markets get weak, I would look for it to pull back towards 150, 162. Now that's going to come up, but that's an area that was a lot of support right there at this point on Apple done. If it breaks above 175, you got a little gap. It didn't quite finish filling here. And then I would look for a move to 180, give or take. All right. No, Don, I'm out BA. I'm out BA. I got out of it yesterday. Full disclosure, I lost $30 on it because I lost patience and threw in the towel when the market was coming down and it wouldn't bend. I'm going to show you. And then it went. So I was short yesterday. I got short into this candle here, the second 5-minute candle. When the market rolled and it couldn't go, I finally said enough on this candle when it popped, and then it finally went. But you know what? That's okay. I kept it a very small loser, and then I made a bunch of money on OSTK, and so I'm a happy camper. AARY, sure. I don't like AARY, guys. I do not like how this name trades. It trades very, very, very sloppy. It's a biotech. It's popping up here. I would not be chasing it up here. I don't know why. They're looking for a buyout or something like that. Again, biotechs for me are very, very tough. You have to know what's going on. But it gave a nice technical breakout when it took out 20. RTN? RTN is not a name I generally trade. And the reason I don't trade it, it has very low volume. I don't think it's too late for this one. And if you like it, it's got a nice flag. Have they had earnings yet? I think they did. I think they had earnings on this day. It's a nice flag. It takes out the 100-day, and I think it can get another extension up. It's not heated, so you're not too late at all. What else? A couple more real quick. Let's do GM. That's a good one. I like GM. This is my favorite automobile stock, guys. So here's what I don't like. I don't like this gap earnings gap up and then gap down and pull. That said, I think it had run a long way and it was just in need of a little bit of a pull in and sideways action. I like GM overall long term. I think it goes up and takes out this 44 area. If there's a China deal, it takes off like a bat out of hell. So I feel like that. And let's do one more. Let's do Microsoft. I like Microsoft. I'll do one. I'll do two more. I'll give you Microsoft and I'll give you Amazon. Microsoft here, to me, trading very, very tough. You have very defined resistance at the 100-day. You see that here? Keeps popping into it and pulling, but it also keeps coming back and holding the 200-day. So, it's got to take one out definitively for me to have anything other than a day trade on it here at this point, KM. It's kind of range bound at the moment going sideways, right? But the nice thing is you have defined support and defined resistance on it, right? Which makes it easy to play. Let's talk Amazon, guys. Amazon is in a bear market, okay? It's 20% off its highs. It's below every moving average, okay? Yesterday, it could barely revert back into the Bollinger Band and is now well below all the moving averages. I gave a short idea on Thursday night for the weekly 1570s. People who took them got a 4 to 5 time return on them on the open. The reason is, if it lost the 50-day, it's going to be in trouble. I think it's in trouble. Now, if the market's strong, I wouldn't try to short it, but anytime the market gets weak at this point until it changes, I would try to short it. I would try to take this down. I think it can come down, and you can look for a test of 1480 area, maybe even take 1500 of that area, and then eventually, if it really wants, it can keep going. Yeah, the Robert, I think you nailed it. I think the aura, the mystique of Bezos is coming undone right now. So for me, this is a short, until something changes. IQ has earnings coming up this week. Yeah, Arthur, they closed it in that. They closed it in Netflix and something else. You know what? I don't think it matters because we've seen a lot of companies doing this. A lot of big names. We had the Nvidia the other day. Somebody closed their entire stake and it didn't care, didn't react to it. I think you're just seeing a lot of this. Look at Microsoft. It didn't react to the news after hours, right? Didn't care. All right, guys. Everybody, I need to get going. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it. And I hope you guys are all doing well. And I'll see you guys shortly. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.